Are companies actually doing mass layoffs or are they lying?
According to the Challenger layoff report, U.S. hiring is now at its lowest level since the Great Recession, with employers already laying off nearly 1 million workers this year. And rather than
Hmm.
every headline pretending to blame AI for mass layoffs, I'm going to break down the real reason companies are actually gutting the workforce. While the nation's labor force has continuously been sold the illusion of a robust job market, one defined by record levels of low unemployment, the
Hmm.
reality is that the last
Yeah, I don't know about that. I have a lot of friends just graduate college, can't find a job. It's insanely difficult to find a job.
5 years have been nothing more than a complete facade, with every metric and revision simply comparing our modern job market to the worst economic catastrophe since the Great Depression. And just like during the Great Recession, when corporations and government alike made it clear that the livelihoods of the average American were the least of their concerns, today's modern layoffs once again prove
US job cuts at 16-year high as trade or concerns hammer sentiment.
that
Why do they say it like that? No idea what that means. A quarter of bosses admit their return to office mandates were meant to make staff quit. Oh yeah. That makes sense. Like a lot of them, they do stay at home, right? And they hire a bunch of people from remote. Like if you're in New York, they hire someone from Idaho, and then when they want to lay them off, if they want to fire them, they have to give them a severance package. They have to like give them something. But if they quit by themselves, you don't have to give them anything. So they just say, "Oh, now you got to show up to work. If you can't make it, then you're fired." Then it's their fault. If they can't make it, then they can't fulfill their duties. They have to quit.
beneath the supposed return to office mandates and the rise of AI dominance lies a coordinated effort to conceal the truth that the powers that be cannot replace and outsource American workers fast enough, a pattern that has remained consistent since the 1960s. To absorb the influx of unemployed Mexican laborers and offset rising industrial costs in the US, the two governments established the Border Industrialization Program, or BIP, in 1965. It encouraged American corporations to build twin plants, or maquiladoras, along the US-Mexico border, where raw materials could be imported, duty-free, assembled by Mexican workers earning between 33 and 50 cents an hour, compared to the roughly $2.50 for.
Yeah, I think Americans are a little spoiled. Like, people from other countries, from third world countries, they come here, they work their ass off for cheaper pay too, because they don't know better. Like us, they were like, oh yeah, we're not doing anything below $20 an hour. I have some people even more entitled than that. They're like, oh, right out of college, I gotta be making like 200K plus. I'm like, yo, what is this guy on? But yeah, you gotta start low and then build your way up. But these people coming from other countries, it's good and bad. It's good that we have our basic needs like lawn mowing. Like, what do Mexicans do? A lot of them work in factories, so cheaper labor. That means cheaper costs and goods, like for the business, which means cheaper stuff for us. But if the business has higher costs, they have to raise their prices, which makes everything more expensive. Like, imagine a meat plant. Instead of hiring Mexicans, they hire Americans. Yeah, instead of hiring Mexicans, they hire Americans. Our meat is gonna go through the roof. Why? Because everyone's getting paid $25 an hour plus benefits instead of what, $10 an hour? I don't know the exact figures, but that's the comparison.
For American workers, and then be exported back to the US, with tariffs applied only to the value added during production, and while it was marketed as a Cold War measure to secure America's southern border.
The bad part is they take all the jobs here. There's not enough. There's increase in supply. There's set amount of demand. Like, how are you going to get more demand if there's more business here and we sell to other countries? But the price is so expensive here, we can't sell to other countries. That's the bad part. Like, as more people come in, they're cheaper. Like, they're willing to work for less. So they take all the jobs. While some Americans, low skilled labor, they can't get the jobs.
And reduce illegal immigration, the BIP quickly evolved into the foundation of modern cross-border outsourcing. By the 1980s, the maquiladora system had expanded from a handful of factories to over 1,000 plants, and with the peso's repeated devaluations, American corporations took further advantage, driving wages even lower and deepening the exploitation of an already underpaid workforce, where the surge in profitability drew in major US manufacturers like Ford Motor Company and General Electric. Ford hollowed out Detroit's industrial base, relocating over 20,000 jobs to its assembly plant in Sonora, while General Electric offshored more than 10,000 positions as it expanded operations in Tijuana. And by the time labor unions began lobbying Congress over the increasing losses of American jobs, the media had already reframed the crisis as progress, justifying mass layoffs and community collapse under the illusion of cheaper goods and greater consumer savings. And while the United States faced rising inflation and sought to maintain stability in East Asia, President Jimmy Carter's 1979 reduction of tariffs on Chinese imports gave American corporations a powerful new incentive to move production overseas. Among the first to capitalize on the shift was General Electric CEO Jack Welch, who under his leadership initiated one of the earliest and largest waves of American manufacturing jobs being outsourced abroad, eliminating roughly 115,000 domestic positions between 1981 and 1985.
I mean, that could be good and bad. America became the skilled labor. All the cheap labor, all the unskilled labor, like putting together parts, factory line worker, it's shifted overseas. And we just managed the marketing, we just managed, the blue no, not the blue collar, the white collar jobs, which can be good and bad. It's good that we have all the power, but it's bad because now we can't make anything. Anything we need, we have to rely on other countries. What happens if there's tension between the countries? Then they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to give you your essential needs." Then you have to budge.
Welch also laid the groundwork for white-collar outsourcing, establishing GE service centers in Gurgaon, India, to exploit lower engineering wages. As he famously put it, ideally you'd have every plant you own on a barge, capturing the emerging corporate mindset that American jobs were no longer foundational assets, but disposable costs to be minimized. Fortune magazine later celebrated that philosophy, naming Welch its manager of the century in 1999. And while the nation's workforce was already feeling the impact of mass offshoring, the Reagan administration began transforming that corporate mindset into political strategy. Robert Bonatotti, one of the architects.
Well, yeah, it's a pretty good move from a business standpoint. It's like if you're paying your workers $100 a day, you have 20 workers. That's $2,000 a day, right? But if you move that overseas, dude, they're willing to work for $5 a day. You just made $2,000 into what, 5 times? You just made $2,000 to $100. That's a big savings. And labor is like the fixed cost. Like you can't really change it unless you move it somewhere. Like every day you're gonna pay the same thing. And if you move it overseas, that's major savings. Labor is one of the biggest costs in business. Like you need people to work for you. That's how you expand. So they found a way to make that cheaper. Make your fixed costs cheaper.
Text behind Reagan's labor outreach openly detailed how the administration's messaging was deliberately crafted to appear focused on restoring prosperity for hardworking Americans. In attempting to influence blue-collar workers, it is possible to target politically appealing messages to that group by emphasizing jobs, job creation, and the direct benefit to workers of our efforts to revitalize the economy. Blue-collar workers seem to have been susceptible to such messages and found them very appealing during the 1980 campaign. Some thought might be also given to staging events that emphasize job creation or economic growth. Unfortunately, many politically appealing messages that could be transmitted to blue-collar workers, like limiting auto and steel imports to preserve American jobs, just don't make good policy sense. Between 1981 and 1989, more than 1.6 million American jobs were offshored to Japan, Mexico, South Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong, placing enormous downward pressure on job quality and wages. And while headlines
Well, if you can this is from a business standpoint. If you can make production cheaper and better by shipping it overseas, there's no downside. It's for the people that need the work. It's for the people that are W-2 employees that do that, like how they're paid. But from a business standpoint, that's like one of the best things you can do. And you can sell it at the same price, at better quality, maybe even higher price. It's a win-win.
praised the 16.1 million jobs created during Reagan's 2 terms, they failed to mention that only 28% were in high school occupations, with 12.5 million concentrated in low-wage service work, such as waitstaff, janitorial services, and retail. And as high school graduates increasingly filled these low-wage positions, their paths for advancements also narrowed, driving a broader collapse in wages. During this period, earnings for young men fell from $12.19 in 1979 to $8.72.
Wait, what? Erosion of wages. Wow.
Cents in 1995, while wages for young women declined from $9.01 to $7.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Make less than the male, yeah. Make less than the man. That makes sense.
And 43 cents. Where after a decade of industrial decline, the 1990s marked the largest transformation of the American workforce under President Bill Clinton. Trade agreements such as NAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China opened U.S. markets to aggressive import competition. Between 1994,
I believe in the free market. So if it's too low of a wage, that means no one's gonna work there. If no one works there, they're going to increase their offer. It's whoever chickens out first. So if it's too low, why are people still taking the job? I get they need it, but if everyone takes a low paying job, then they're going to take advantage of that. If they were $9 and they bid it at, or they put it at $7, and people still show up to work, that means they're willing to work for $7. If you're not willing to work for $7, go somewhere else.
In 2001, more than 879,000 American jobs were officially certified as lost to trade under the government's Trade Adjustment Assistance Program, with economists estimating the real number was 2 to 3 times higher. Meanwhile, headlines celebrated rising household incomes and the creation of 22 million jobs, the most of any presidency, but of course, those gains were largely an illusion. Alongside record bankruptcy rates, American families only appeared wealthier because they were working longer hours than ever before. By 1998, the typical middle-income household worked 3,885 hours a year, 247 hours, or roughly 6 additional weeks more than in 1989. American workers were now putting in more hours per year than nearly every other advanced economy, second only to Portugal, with any effort to expose the decline in living standards to only be drowned out by the illusion of a booming stock market. After Reagan lifted SEC restrictions on corporate stock buybacks in 1982, legalizing what had once been considered market manipulation, corporations began funneling profits into artificially inflating share prices, where under Clinton, as trade liberalization accelerated and corporate profits surged, companies more than doubled their buybacks and expanded stock option programs by over 40%, allowing executives to personally profit from the inflation. Where between 1989 and 1998, middle-income families captured just 3% of total stock market gains, but absorbed nearly 40% of the rising consumer debt. And while 22 million jobs did make for a compelling headline, roughly 40 to 45% were low-skill, low-wage service positions. The few high-paying roles that did emerge came not from real economic growth, but from the speculative frenzy of the dot-com bubble. Defined by the success of companies like Apple and Microsoft, the dot-com boom was fueled by venture capitalists pouring billions of dollars into startups under the promise that the internet would revolutionize entire industries. Stock valuations increased so rapidly that in 1999 alone, shares of Qualcomm surged by over 2,600%, while 12 other NASDAQ stocks climbed by at least 1,000%. This new era optimism offered an entire generation the promise of immense opportunity, filled with stock options, rapid career advancement, and the chance to shape a transformative era. But as the demand for technical talent exploded, corporations began claiming a shortage of qualified American workers, giving them a new justification to expand access to cheap foreign labor. In 1990, the H-1B visa program was introduced under the Immigration Act signed by President George H.W. Bush, initially intended to address temporary shortages in high-skill fields such as engineering, computing, and finance.
That makes sense. That's when we made the shift from blue collar labor like manufacturing to more high skilled labor like white collar jobs. So I believe there's a mass layoff of the working class, of the blue collar class.
Employers were required to sponsor workers and certify that their hiring would not undercut domestic wages or job opportunities, with an annual cap set at 65,000 visas. However, by the late 1990s, the U.S. Department of Commerce estimated that nearly 28% of all programming positions in the country were filled by H-1B visa holders, where following heavy lobbying from the tech industry, President Bill Clinton signed the American Competitiveness in the 21st Century Act, raising the visa cap to 195,000 between 2000 and 2003. And although the media framed this expansion as a response to domestic skills shortage, a 2003 new immigrant survey found that within identical occupations, permanent residents earned 25.4% more than H-1B visa holders, showing that once again, the program's intent had shifted from solving labor shortages and into suppressing wages. And while the H-1B cap was reset to 65,000...
Well, yeah, if you could pay the workers less, why wouldn't you? That's capitalism. That's how business works. It's like, why would you pay them more, increase your costs, and decrease your profits? Makes no sense. You would pay whoever works for less.
workers following.
Like, yeah, it sounds unethical, but that's how businesses run. Like, if you ran a business, you do the same thing. You're like, oh, I could hire John over here, but I have to pay him $20. Or I can hire Jose. He's willing to work for $10. You just save yourself $10 an hour. And that's like however many hours they work in a day. That's how much you saved.
In the dot-com bubble, companies have continued to exploit these same loopholes ever since. The most common involves outsourcing firms that hire large numbers of H-1B workers and then contract them out to major tech companies, acting as intermediaries that give corporations access to foreign labor without filling out their own petitions. These firms often use what's known as the cap-exempt category, an exemption originally intended for nonprofit universities, research institutions, and government agencies engaged in scientific or academic work. To bypass the cap, many outsourcing firms create nominal partnerships or shell affiliations with universities and nonprofit research labs, classifying themselves as cap exempt and filling visa petitions year-round. And once approved, these workers can now be rotated between multiple projects or reassigned to different clients without filling new petitions, multiplying the reach of each visa and stretching the intent of the law beyond recognition. And while you're probably thinking, how is this not illegal? Be prepared to be very disappointed. In 2013, two of the largest outsourcing firms, Infosys and Tata Consultancy Services, were investigated by the Department of Labor for using this exact strategy. The investigation found that the average salary for an H-1B worker at Infosys was $70,882, and at Tata, just $65,565, compared to $91,990 for a domestic computer systems analyst. Other partnered firms were saving even more, cutting labor costs by as much as 36 to 41%, or roughly $40,000.
That's a lot of money. That's almost half the pay. See what I'm saying? It's so much cheaper. If you were a company, the money you save is money in your pocket. But it's not going to be in the worker's pocket. It's going to be in your pocket. And if they're willing to work for that, I don't see the problem.
To $45,000 less per worker each year. Yet despite clear evidence that the US workers were being undercut, directly violating the H-1B program's supposed protections for wages and working conditions, the Department of Labor ruled it permissible so long as those workers were technically employed through a contractor. A loophole that to this day continues to legalize wage suppression, hidden behind the headlines of mass layoffs.
D'Angelo says his replacement, a worker from India, told him he was making half D'Angelo's salary with no benefits.
I didn't get laid off for lack of work.
Well, India is also way cheaper to live in than America. Like, way cheaper to live in than America.
I got laid off because somebody cheaper could do my job.
We met with this group of workers who all had to train replacements. Leo Pereiro had just received high performance reviews from Disney. When he was called into a personnel meeting,
Like, all 6 of them, each one probably makes like 100,000. All 6 of them can live in India for 100,000. All of them. They can live like kings in India. Off of 20,000 a year, that's a lot of money in India.
he expected a raise and a promotion.
And instead,
I was given the news that in 90 days, my job was over, and I had to train my replacement.
For years, the nation's workforce has been bombarded with campaigns urging people to learn to code, promoting the belief that programming skills were the path to a stable, high-paying career. Yet,
Dang. I didn't know companies can do that. I didn't know they could be like, oh, your job is going to end in 3 months. Now you have to train your new replacement. That's so fucked up. That's like saying, like, oh, this guy likes your girl, and you have to make them fall in love. That's so fucked.
and according to a study by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, among college graduates aged 22 to 27, computer science and computer engineering majors now face some of the highest unemployment rates in the country.
Whoa, engineering? Bio? Yeah, that's crazy. How? Everyone wanted engineering. Everyone wanted computer engineer, computer science. Like back in high school, that's all they said. They're like, oh, you got to get into coding. And now there's too much. Everyone is told to do that. Everyone is told to learn the same thing. Now it's too much. Saw that coming like, what, 8 years ago.
6.1% and 7.5% respectively, more than double the rates of biology and even art history graduates.
Wow.
Recent data also shows that the
Wow.
unemployment
More than art history? How do people with art history degrees have more jobs than computer engineering, computer science?
among computer occupations climbed from an average of 1.98% in 2019 to 3.02% in 2025, even as the share of IT workers within the H-1B program rose from 32% in 2003 to more than 65% in the last 5 years. So when these companies claim that AI is responsible for these mass layoffs, it's worth comparing these headlines to the actual hiring data. Amazon, for instance, has cut roughly 27,000 positions between 2022 and 2024, with another 10,000 to 12,000 layoffs in 2025 alone, attributed to AI eliminating future roles. Yet in that same year, Amazon ranks number 1, number 11.
Oh, don't they have like the highest churn rate? Like people that work there they're not gonna work there in like 3 to 6 months. I don't know why, I forget. I think it's long hours.
Number 24 and number 49 among the top 100 companies approved for H-1B workers, totaling 365 new hires, or more than the number of layoffs this entire year. The second highest employer is Infosys, one of
Wait, still? Like, what year is this? Oh, as of 2025. That's crazy. Tata Consultancy Service? I thought that was like they went out of business like a while ago. Tata is still here? That's crazy.
the very outsourcing firms investigated for undercutting US wages, followed closely by Microsoft, which saw its stock price surge after announcing yet another round of AI-related layoffs. Meta ranks fourth, even after publicly shutting down its AI assistant, M, and replacing it with a human-assisted version, where all AI responses are reviewed and edited by a few dozen contractors.
What the hell? Contractors? You have AI to make stuff more efficient, and then you're gonna add humans back in to make it less efficient, to look over everything. That makes no sense.
In Menlo Park, whose hours and oversight remain undisclosed. And according to data released by the White House, the pattern doesn't stop there. One company was approved for 5,189 H-1B workers in 2025, while laying off roughly 16,000 U.S. employees that same year. Another was approved for 1,698 H-1B workers, while cutting 2,400 American jobs in Oregon. A third has reduced its U.S. workforce by 27,000 since 2022, while receiving 25,075 H-1B approvals, which I wonder who that one is. And yet another cut 1,000 American jobs in February, despite being approved for 1,137 H-1B workers for 2025, with each statistic telling the exact same story. The systemic gutting of the American workforce is disguised behind the language of innovation.
Because I need less heads with AI. Yeah, that's true. Like, imagine 10 people, right? However much they can do, however much research they can do, AI, click of a button. But it's debatable because sometimes AI can be inaccurate.
And global competitiveness. And what do we get in return? A narrative that blames workers themselves, insisting that we simply lack the skills and experience to get the job done. Which brings us to the question of whether this new proposal to charge a $100,000 H-1B fee will actually do anything to solve this. The first issue is a national fee exemption for H-1B workers whose...
Is it like each H-1B like worker, or just pay that and then you could hire thousands?
role, company, or industry is considered in the national interest and not a threat to the security or welfare of the United States. And when 7 corporations own nearly everything, I don't think there's too much left to say about how flexible that definition can be.
Wow. They buy out a lot. I wonder when the anti-monopoly laws will kick in.
become. The second issue is that this proposal does nothing to address the loopholes, the very reason this program is being abused in the first place. And the third is that in 2017, the US government passed the Tax Cuts and Job Act, which gave corporations an even bigger incentive to offshore operations. The bill cut the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, but it also slashed taxes on profits earned by foreign subsidiaries to just 10.5%, later revised slightly to 12.6%, meaning that even if companies were forced to pay this new $100,000 fee, they'd still save far more money sending jobs overseas than just paying American workers. So while I would love for this to be something that actually makes a difference, the unfortunate reality is that this is probably just another attempt to make the nation's workforce hopeful that change is being made, all while absolutely nothing is being done to build the infrastructure needed for the moment that AI truly does begin replacing American workers. We have to recognize that this is a situation where the system is absolutely broken. It is
Also, I was also thinking maybe it's overpopulation. Maybe there's way too many people. Like, if you look at the population pyramid, it's severely skewed. Like, there's a lot of old people and not enough young people. So, in a sense, there's a lot of problems that could happen. Social Security can collapse. Like, Social Security, it's like you invest, or no, you pay taxes now, and the taxes you pay, Social Security tax, it gets paid to the Social Security payments of the older people. And as younger people grow up, they get jobs, they pay Social Security, it funds the older people. Now you have all these old people, and also US crippling debt. You have all these old people waiting to get paid, not enough young people to pay those old people. It could collapse. But after they're gone, there's going to be a lot less people in terms of population. A lot less people in terms of population. So as they disappear, the younger people can take over their jobs. And because there's not so many, it balances out because of AI. That's my take on it.
absolutely corrupt. It is filled with so much deceit and greed that it's impossible to know what the truth is. I mean, this entire video showed that everything that we're told, the majority of things are not true. We have been so convinced that we lack the necessary experience and skill sets and knowledge, and then we go and we continuously pursue it, and we're still told that there aren't enough educated Americans. I don't know what else we have to do to prove that we have a competent workforce. And it's disgusting to continuously be told that we're not. It's the fact that Americans are treated just like a bunch of idiots is disgusting. The amount of people, the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands of workers that feel like they are absolutely worthless. They can provide no value. They can't support their families. They can't support themselves. They can't even think about starting a family or buying a house or getting an apartment or moving out of their parents' house because they can't get a job, because they can't make more than $18.50 an hour, because they can't.
Even if you do get a job, taxes already take what, 30% of it? So if you make 100,000, it's going to be like 60,000. Give or take. And then with all the other fees, when you buy stuff, taxed. When you get paid, taxed. And when the business owner receives it, taxed. There's tax on everything. Eventually, you just end up with nothing. So even if you do get a job, it hasn't kept up with the price of housing. Housing has jumped up insanely. Like, it just keeps going up. But in terms of wages, it doesn't go up that much. Mainly for shareholder value.
Can't.
Like, every year they expect a return. And as more rich people buy equities, they buy into companies, they expect a return on their money. They're not just putting money in there for no reason. They're putting money in there to make a profit because they own the asset. So every year they increase. And if they can, they try to keep costs low so they can put more profits in their pocket.
Just have some peace of mind that I'm not going to get fired next month, even though I just got the job. What kind of foundation can you create when you have absolutely no idea what direction to look in? This video itself,
That's weird.
It's almost hard.
This water is a little sweet. That's weird. From the coffee, maybe? That's so weird. Why is it tasting sweet? I just opened it too.
It's a hard video to watch because we're all looking for somebody. Who's going to fix this?
Petition to
To
stop
a
ghost
petition,
jobs.
which is the truth and protect job seekers an opportunity.
Honestly, the only thing we can do is let the free market fix itself. If everyone comes together, well, that takes a little planning. But if everyone comes together and they're like, oh, we're not working for this. Or like if everyone comes together and they're like, oh, we don't accept this. Like, there has to be some action. We can't just say you hate your job and then continue to go to your job. Like, back in university, there was a nursing strike. Nursing strike, yeah. All the nurses were around all over the streets protesting, striking, not going to work. And what did the hospital do? They just hired new ones. But eventually, I think they did reach an agreement. I didn't see them anymore. But it is insane how companies now, they're like, oh, we can't find workers. Meanwhile, they're not hiring anyone. People that reach out to them, that apply to those jobs, they can't get any jobs. And that's all for this video. Are companies lying about mass layoffs, or are they just trying to line their pocket with more cash? I'll see you in the next one.